This short presentation will take you through the Standards and Quality Report for Carnmuirs Primary School for session 2020 to 2021. So why are we sharing this? As a school and early learning and childcare class, we are accountable to you, our parents and carers. We are also accountable to Falkirk Council Children's Services and the Scottish Government. There is an expectation that every school will report on their progress annually and make this available. The purpose of the annual Standards and Quality Report is to record the successes and achievements in delivering improvement. In a survey of our parents in May 2021, 82% said that they would like to have a presentation about school improvement planning that they could watch in their own time. This video presentation is the result of that request. The closure of educational establishments in March 2020 and then again in January of this year, the improvement work for this session has centred appropriately and successfully around the provision of remote learning for children and young people. It has focused on the organisation and delivery of emergency childcare for key workers and the provision of pastoral support for vulnerable children and families. Our priorities for session 20 to 21 were agreed by Falkirk Council, with the focus being on recovering from the 5 months lost to coronavirus from March 2020, and also continuing to work, learn and keep everyone safe on the return to school in August 2021. The 3 areas of focus were transition, health and well-being and moving learning forward. And we call this the recovery plan. This report will share what we did to ensure positive transitions between lockdown and returning to school, our approach to supporting and improving health and well-being, and what we did to ensure that our learners continued to make progress. It will tell you about the impact that our work had on our learners and their families based on evidence. We will also share what our next steps will be. The information within this report is based on our work throughout the session and takes into account the thoughts of everyone who is actively involved in our school. It includes the self-evaluation that we do based on government guidance and documents. It also includes evidence of pupil attainment gathered by a range of assessments and observations of children's learning, conversations with our stakeholders and data tracked during the lockdown January to February of this year. We planned for a transition back to school that focused on relationships, supported children and families with the impact of COVID-19 and prioritised communication at all levels. Health and well-being and safety of everyone was the focus. We shared our guidance prior to the school returning in August. We recorded video messages to support children's understanding, and communication was regular through emails for parents prior to starting back. All of the guidance and plans were also added to our free school app for parents. This allowed time for our children and parents to process the changes that would be in place. As well as highlighting what would be different on the return to school, we also reassured children and families by emphasising the routines and people that would be familiar. All children returned to the classroom that they had left in March, and apart from one class, the probationer, all children returned to their same teacher. We celebrated our return to school and nursery and let the children know that we had missed them and were so happy to have them back with us again. We focused on the successes that the children had had during lockdown, and personal rainbow bands were given to every child across the school and early learning and childcare class as a symbol of community and us all being in this together. The introduction of What Matters to Me in early years ensured that the health and well-being for each child was central to the return to nursery. The parents also had an increased involvement in their child's care plan to ensure that it reflected individual strengths, needs and interests. Our Primary 1 teacher utilised digital platforms for transition to connect with the children and their families, as well as completing doorstep visits. The Early Learning and Childcare team supported in Primary 1 for the first 2 weeks, giving a familiar face to the children. Mrs. Jallin's approach to Primary 1 transition was included in What Scotland Learned. Every parent received a phone call within 2 weeks of our return and again prior to the October holiday. Any concerns raised were quickly addressed, and for some children, back to school transition plans were put in place to support them during the first few months. Children's views were also sought and acted upon. We were proactive in seeking the views of parents about what would be important to them should we return to home learning in the future. We utilised Teams as a means of communicating with all staff the rapidly changing guidance, as well as a channel for supporting the staff's health and well-being. We used the video function for meetings to enable meetings to be delivered in a safe way. We introduced the Seesaw digital learning platform across the school in Term 1. Teachers and children were able to gain confidence in using the tools for learning before the second lockdown happened in January 2021. The majority of parents and carers have already signed up and are using the Family app. During the October phone calls, parents reported feeling confident with the return to school and with the safety measures that had been put into place. In May, 56% of our families had their views represented in our most recent survey. The priority that we placed on families first and the transition back into school and learning has been praised highly by our parents. Most adults in school have also commented positively on the focus that has been placed on their health, safety and well-being during this recovery year. What Matters to Me was used across the school in June to capture children's voice as part of their transition into their new class for August 2022. So what's our next steps for transition? A very important next step for us will be the transition of our parents and carers back into school life to support learning and to contribute to our school improvement. We are confident that we can utilise our stronger relationships with parents to build back even stronger. We will create a transition plan that will take us out of the COVID-19 restrictions sensitively and with care, using the What Matters to Me approach. We will utilise this opportunity to update our school routines to continue with the positive aspects highlighted during COVID-19. We will continue to communicate with families in the way that we have this session, with a focus on families first and partnerships for learning.